A mother vanished without her phone, her wallet, or her 5-month-old baby. Then investigators uncovered surveillance footage that changed the entire case and turned a missing persons report into something far more disturbing. On the evening of February 26, 2022, police in Carmel, Indiana, received a call from a man named Xavier Breland. He reported that his 31-year-old wife, Sierra Breland, had gone missing. According to Xavier, he had last seen her the previous night when she left their home and walked to a nearby convenience store. At first, it sounded like a routine missing persons report. But almost immediately, detectives noticed details that didn't add up. Temperatures that night had dropped to around 20 degrees Fahrenheit, yet Xavier claimed that Sierra had left wearing only a light black top and purple shorts. The explanation raised concerns from the very beginning. When officers entered the house, they found something even more unusual. Sierra's driver's license, credit cards, and identification were still there. Both of her phones had also been left behind, including a backup device that relatives said she kept only for emergencies. Then investigators noticed another detail that made the situation even more troubling. The couple's 5-month-old son, Jackson, was still inside the home. To Sierra's family, this was impossible to understand. They described her as a devoted mother who constantly checked on her baby. The thought that she would leave without her child, her money, or her phones simply did not make sense. Police quickly began reviewing surveillance footage from the convenience store and surrounding streets. They expected to see Sierra walking through the neighborhood at some point during the night. Instead, they found absolutely nothing. Not a single camera captured her leaving the house or heading toward the store. It was as if she had disappeared before she ever stepped outside. Investigators soon realized that the story about a late-night trip to the store was leading nowhere. The answers they were looking for might not be in Indiana at all. To understand what happened, they needed to go back several days and retrace the couple's recent movements. Just days before Sierra was reported missing, she and Xavier had been visiting family in Georgia. Detectives gathered surveillance footage from gas stations, rest stops, and convenience stores along the 11-hour route back to Indiana. They expected to see evidence that the family had made the trip home together. Instead, they discovered something deeply concerning. Every time the family's white Volkswagen appeared on camera, only one person stepped out of the vehicle. Xavier was seen buying food and pumping gas, but Sierra never appeared in any of the footage. Investigators could not even prove that she had been inside the car during the drive. The last confirmed sighting of Sierra came from a surveillance camera in Johns Creek, Georgia. On February 24, 2022, at exactly 7:17 p.m., she was seen outside her mother-in-law's home. Nothing in the footage appeared unusual, but after that moment, her trail suddenly ended. She stopped answering messages and no longer contacted her family. Detectives now believe that her disappearance may have begun in Georgia rather than Indiana. The missing person report that Xavier had filed suddenly looked very different. To understand how Sierra had ended up in this situation, investigators needed to learn more about the woman at the center of the case and the life she had been living. Sierra Breland had built an impressive life for herself. She was an attorney with a promising career and was known by family and friends as ambitious, caring, and determined. In October 2020, she met Xavier Breland on Tinder. Their relationship moved quickly. Within 6 months, they were married, and Sierra was already expecting their first child. The newlyweds later moved to Indiana and welcomed their son, Jackson. To outsiders, they looked like a happy young family beginning an exciting new chapter together. But according to those closest to Sierra, the reality of her marriage was very different from the image they presented to the world. According to Sierra's cousin and closest friend, problems in the relationship began early. Sierra confided through text messages that she was afraid of her husband and worried about his increasingly aggressive behavior. She wrote that he seemed to be getting worse and no longer felt guilty after arguments. Police had reportedly been called to the couple's home several times. Yet every time officers arrived, Sierra would calm down and choose not to pursue any action. She still hoped things could improve. At the same time, She quietly began preparing for the possibility that one day she might have to leave. Over time, Sierra started creating an exit plan. She secretly opened a separate bank account and transferred money into it. She also kept a backup phone in case she ever needed help. In conversations with family members, she admitted that if anything happened to her, they should look at Xavier. Then, during a visit to Georgia in February of 2022, Sierra finally made a decision. She told her parents that she wanted a divorce. She planned to stay in Georgia, find work nearby, and begin a new life close to the people she trusted. For the first time in a long while, she believed she had found a way forward. There was only one problem. Her son, Jackson, was staying at Xavier's mother's house in Johns Creek. Sierra went there intending to collect him before leaving permanently. Shortly after arriving, she sent a message to her cousin, saying that Xavier would not give her the baby, and that she was waiting so she could take him and leave. The message revealed growing tension inside the house. It would also become one of the last communications anyone received from Sierra. Soon afterward, she stopped answering calls and texts. Days passed, and her family began to fear that something terrible had happened. On February 26th, Sierra's father received an unexpected phone call from Indiana police. He learned that Xavier had reported his daughter missing. The news shocked the family because they believed she was still in Georgia. When her father called Xavier and demanded answers, the conversation ended abruptly. As investigators continued their work, they uncovered allegations of stalking, threats, and violence in Xavier's past. A massive search eventually stretched across several states, but no trace of Sierra was ever found. Later, Xavier himself disappeared after being released on bond. Today, the mystery remains unsolved, and Sierra Breland's family is still waiting for answers.